Yo guys, what's going on? It's FusionBlitzx here, bringing you another honest review. So today we'll be taking a look at Cities Skylines. So with that out of the way, let's see what this game is actually about. This game is pretty much another game like SimCity. It's a city simulator game where you build your own city and you manage it. So let's talk about the gameplay mechanics of this city simulator, because I think they're pretty darn good. So first of all, building roads is quite simple. You just click and drag and that's that. Your roads are important because that's how people are going to get around in the beginning. You can later set up pavement paths for people to walk on. But roads are going to be your main way to get people around your city. And it's going to be where you're going to set up all of your buildings. Well, mostly. So what happens is your roads, they come in either one-way or two-way variations. So if it's one-way, your car's going to go one way. If it's two-way, they can go both ways. And they have different amounts of traffic that they can handle and different speed limits as well. So keep this in mind when you are building a city. And you have to be careful because they are quite costly. So you can't just lay a bunch of roads and expect everything to go okay. But that's it about roads. Now we're going to talk about zoning areas. Next to your roads, you're going to have an area where you can actually put buildings. And you do this by zoning them in either commercial or residential. That's how you're going to build your buildings around, and they have to be next to roads. So it's quite easy. You just click on which zone you want to make each part be, and then you click on the white squares, and then you'll see which zones are residential, commercial, and industrial, which is pretty intuitive. And I got a bunch of buildings up pretty quickly. You just click on the areas and they'll start building themselves given enough time. So that's pretty easy. Now let's talk about water. Your citizens are going to need water, and pretty much all your buildings, they're going to need water. To do this, you're going to have to pump it using some pumping stations which require electricity. More on that later. And you're also going to need to handle sewage. Like, I found that on my first worlds where sewage backed up because I didn't think you needed a drainage pipe. I didn't know how that worked. And people just started leaving, and then it just went to shit. I went bankrupt really quickly. So water management is very crucial, and they make it intuitive enough. Like, they show which areas have access to water and which areas don't, and you can just have a giant network of pipes, which is pretty cool. It's just really intuitive and really easy to get a hand of, so that's good. Now let's talk about electricity. Your citizens are going to need electricity. It's a city, they need electricity to watch TV, air conditioning, all that kind of stuff, and your industrial areas are going to need electricity to function properly. So without it, you're going to go bankrupt pretty quickly. People are going to get unhappy, they're going to leave. So you can generate electricity through wind turbines or coal power plants at first. The wind turbines can be placed anywhere, but you have to place them where the wind is strong, so you make the most amount of power, which is pretty neat. And they don't have to be connected to roads, which is a good thing. But power plants, they have to be connected to roads, and they produce pollution, but they make a lot of power. And each little area has its own power grid. Your buildings, they have their own power grid, but they won't power themselves. You need to connect your power grids up from your energy source with a power line. So just get into the game and you'll see it's quite intuitive how you connect everything up, so that's pretty cool. Next, let's talk about healthcare. Your citizens are going to get sick, and if they start getting sick and they don't get healed, they will die, and you don't want your citizens just dying all over the place. So you want to have decent healthcare, so you want to set up these medical centers so they can send out enough ambulances and hearses so they can bring in all the people and keep your city, running very well, because if your citizens are sick, they're not going to be making much money, they're not going to be doing much in general. So you have to make sure that they're well looked after. Now let's talk about education. The more educated your citizens are, the higher the land value, the more money your citizens will make, and all that kind of stuff. So it's important that you educate your citizens. So you have to take them through elementary school, high school, and university. For industrial areas, you want mostly uneducated workers, because that's the kind of jobs that they want in the industry. But with higher educated people, they're going to make more money in the commercial areas, and you're going to need highly educated people from university to work in the office areas, but they make more money as well, so that's pretty good. So make sure your citizens are well educated or not, depending on how you go about things. Now let's talk about garbage and pollution. You're going to need to manage garbage pretty pretty well, because otherwise it is pretty much the quickest way to like get rid of your city that I found. A couple of my worlds kind of went to shit because I didn't have enough garbage control. People just piled up with garbage everywhere and it was a really shitty time, and then they just left and then I went bankrupt. Woo. But make sure you manage your garbage with landfills and incinerators, and they pretty much manage your garbage. There's also pollution in this game, and this pretty much affects how happy your citizens are. And this is really important because happy citizens make more money and they're going to pay more taxes as well. So with pollution, a lot of things will make noise pollution, and you don't want to live in a noisy neighborhood, so you know how that feels and how that works. But ground pollution is also an issue. Like, if the stuff around you is like pretty yucky, you don't want to be around there. So I'm pretty sure there's more to pollution than what I've just said, but this is what I've experienced. So pollution management is really crucial, especially when planning your city. Now, crime is another thing that you have to deal with your police stations. Fires are another thing that are quite annoying. Like, buildings just randomly catch on fire and just, you know, burn down. And I'm like, crap, need more fire engines. So you're gonna have to manage fires. Traffic is also important, so your people can get to where they need to be as quickly as possible, and that is really important later on. And that's really about it for the gameplay mechanics. There might be some others that I haven't touched upon yet because I haven't gone that far into a world yet, because, you know, I've kept on dying a couple of times because, you know, I'm not that good at this yet. But that's all I have to talk about gameplay mechanics for now. And the rest is pretty much self-explanatory anyway. Now, the city layout is also very important. I tend to have my residential areas separate from the commercial areas because the commercial areas make a lot of noise. But the way that you lay out your city will determine how successful it is. If people have to travel a long way to get to places, they're not going to be as happy. There's going to be more congestion and stuff like that. So you have to really plan out your city to get the most amount of money out of them and make sure everybody's happy. Now let's talk about the graphics. The graphics in this game look pretty nice. I mean, like, they're not mind-bogglingly amazing, but they're good enough. And that's pretty much good enough for me. And they look pretty nice. Like, the buildings, they look pretty sharp and everything, so that's good. Now, the performance of this game is also pretty good. This seems to be a more CPU-bound game than anything else because you're doing a bunch of calculations, but it runs pretty well on just about everything. I put it on an old laptop, and it was running pretty well on that laptop, considering how old it was. So you people should be able to run this game just fine. Now, this game is really fun. I might not be the best at this game. In fact, I absolutely suck. But from what people have said about SimCity and how it's gone to shit, this is pretty much the best city simulator game that I can pretty much think of and have seen. So you guys should probably pick it up. It's on sale right now on Steam. So it's just a really good game. I've been having a blast even though I suck. So it definitely gets a recommendation from me. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this honest review, and as always, thanks for watching. Peace out.